Stephen A., do you have a problem with his comments?
Of course I have a problem with his comments. They were highly insensitive and very, very dismissive. Some would venture toward the realm of misogynistic. I'm not going to go that far. But I do think that it's a legitimate question in terms of saying she doesn't know anything about football, unless you're trying to say that only people who have played or coached the game should be on the committee. Then unless that is specifically what you meant, then his comments are relatively offensive. Now, it brings into point a different issue, because as women, let's just call it what it is. You have an abundance of men in the world who believe that when it comes to male sports, women should have no say whatsoever. Obviously, I am not one of those people. Skip is not one of those people, and it is what it is. But if it was up to those people, you wouldn't be sitting where you are. Linda Cohn and Sage Steele and others wouldn't be hosting Sports Center. There would be no analyst anywhere, not here or any other network. In other words, you know what? Speak when spoken to, be seen when we want you to be seen. And that brings into focus an obviously different issue. And to me, that's what it comes down to. Now, there are going to be people that flat out and categorically deny this. Condoleezza Rice is a highly educated woman who clearly is known as being an avid sports fan. None of us are apologetic or remotely incendiary when it comes to President Barack Obama speaking on the issue of or any sports related issue or being involved in any capacity that he wants to. We don't sit there, we sit there and applaud it because he's a sports fan. Condoleezza Rice is the former Secretary of State. Obviously, was educated at Stanford. Obviously, this is a woman that knows a thing or two about politics. And isn't that what we're talking about when we're talking about big-time college sports, Gibbs, and these bowl games and talking about ultimately a playoff system? It's not just about the games. It's not just about football. It's not just about dissecting the polls and deciding who should go where. It's also about politics, because you're talking about an 18-member selection committee. You understand? You're talking about taking things into consideration, whether it be sponsorships, monies accorded to schools, whatever the case may be. In this day and age, we know that politics plays an incredible role. Mm-hmm. This is one of the ultimate politicians.
So why not have her on?
So why not have her?
What's the
as long as she knows what she's talking about.
Yep.
Because I don't know. I've never really studied her football background. Assuming she knows what she's talking about, like she watches the game like the rest of us, there's absolutely nothing wrong with her being on this committee. Nothing.
I'm with you. And remember, Pat Dye is now 73 years of age,
Yes.
grew up in Georgia, played at Georgia, coached at Auburn, athletic director at Auburn. And this comes across to me as a chauvinistic cheap shot from a distance.
Yes.
Because I don't think he really knows whether Condoleezza knows football or not. From all I've read, and I certainly don't know her, she's a big football fan. Grew up a football fan. Her father was a big Alabama fan, state of Alabama, where Auburn is located, obviously. So this committee is to have up to 18 members, 18 from sort of all walks of life in college athletics. And remember, Condoleezza has been a volunteer golf coach at Stanford. She attends many of Stanford's athletic events, including many, many football games. There's a commercial running right now about how she watched the Super Bowl when she was on assignment
in another country. She had to wake up at like 4 a.m.
Okay, right. And I believe that.
Sure.
So I want a cross-section. And even though this is men's college football, certainly doesn't bother me that we have one female perspective, and I assume she'll wind up being the only female on the panel. I don't know. Maybe there's still a few more slots to fill out here.
And the very commercial you're alluding to is something that's promoted by the NFL.
The NFL. Thank you very much. So, again, will several members of the committee, let's say Stanford is one of the possible teams that would get one of the 4 slots to play for the national championship, semifinals and final. Would she have to recuse herself if voting on Stanford? Yeah, but hey, I can run down. We got Archie Manning here and Pat Hayden. Yeah. If it's Ole Miss or USC, then they're going to have to recuse themselves. No problem there. Right. But I kind of like it that she could step away a little bit from this and say, well, what about this? And have you guys considered this?
They're asking her to be thoughtful.
Yeah, I like it.
It's
I like
fine.
the perspective. Maybe it'll check some of the guys who get caught up in the closed-minded traditions of college football.
Well, indirectly, it is checking some of the guys because the male figures that have been vehement in their opposition to this have provoked questions as to exactly why do you feel that way? What is it that you are exactly that you are trying to say? Because if this woman watches the game of football, studies the game of football, knows what she's talking about as it pertains to the game of football, what are you trying to say? Because there is no one that I've heard that has spoken out against her potential or imminent arrival on this selection committee. There's no one that I've heard say, okay, she doesn't know anything about football, I can prove it. Nobody has said that. They have no clue. The only thing you have to go on is that she is a female, so obviously she didn't play the game, and that she is obviously a politician.
My point was she's not the only person on the committee who has not played the game.
There you go.
Okay, and may I throw one last big point out here?
Please do.
In the National Football League and the NBA, we now see a movement afoot of so many new GMs and personnel directors who did not play a lick of that game. Not a lick. Yeah. Barely played high school.
Right.
Really, I can go on and on about this guy only played a little bit of high school, this or that.